Oh, here we go. It says we're going live. Here we go. All right, I clicked the button. It says we're going live, and oh, there we are. We are live on the YouTubes for the February 8th, 2024 Westlake Charter School Board meeting. Board President Golick, you have the floor.
Thank you. For those joining us via YouTube, please know that you can still submit a public comment. Please send an email to admin@westlakecharter.com. In the subject item, list what you'd like to speak about, and then try to limit your comment to 250 words. We'll do our best to read it in during the meeting, but if by chance we miss it, we will be sure to attach it to the minutes. With that, Amy, will you please take roll?
Yes. Hope?
Here.
Sean? Josh?
Here.
Meredith?
Here.
Amber?
Here.
Suzanne? Nirali?
Here.
Amy?
Here.
Ann?
Here. Perfect. That brings us to celebrations. Who wants to go first? Who's first? Who's first?
I'll start.
Yay!
I'm super excited. I think last time I celebrated spending time with my son, and we're actually taking off to Death Valley tomorrow, so I'm super excited about that.
Amy or Steve, either way.
You want to come up?
Take it away, Mr. Corbin.
I'll give a shout out to Mrs. Street. I walked into
Oh, yeah.
the front office, I think it was on Tuesday. There was a new little second grader with her mom there, and Mrs. Street was there with the helper from yesterday. And so just trying to make some quick connections and things like that. Say, hey, what a great day to start off the school year for a student new to Westlake to start, make a friend and meet the teacher and everything else. So I just noticed that real quickly. I was like, oh yeah, that's worthy of a good celebration.
I met that new second grader and her mom. It was super nice, and they were walking down the hall, and I got a chance to stop and meet her and welcome her to Westlake. Yeah, I think she's
just
neat.
a quick moment, but I was like, that's worth it.
Yeah. I said, oh, you're Mrs. Street's class. She has a green sofa. You're gonna love it. It's a cool green sofa. Josh, what are you celebrating?
I'm just celebrating the basketball games.
Woo woo.
It's cool to pull in and the parking lot's full and,
Yeah.
we're still doing our thing, but the kids are still doing theirs.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind taking a little break, just to see the score.
Yeah. We were talking about a break later on. We were talking about that. Last league home game for True Story?
All three.
For all three. Last league home game. Yeah. Exciting.
Exciting. That's exciting. So it just brings another vibe to campus that I enjoy.
Love it. Dr. Galloway?
I'll celebrate our counseling staff at the high school. They, along with the ninth grade advisory teachers, led a trip this Monday to Sonoma State. So, and I heard from a lot of the ninth graders they wanted more time there so they could buy more swag.
Yeah.
So,
I'm correct with this.
so success all around.
Yeah.
And I just love what we do for our high schoolers, kind of helping them see their possible futures and imagine themselves in a new context.
Love it.
I'm going to celebrate, even though I wasn't there, but I love the pictures of I'm not going to get the name right, of the family dance.
Yeah, the K-5 family dance.
K-5
Yeah.
family dance. It's been really neat to see all the pictures and everyone dressed up and Miss gets, and it's just, knowing that they're babies and now, it's just,
It's amazing.
it just brought such a smile to my face to see that event and to see just the community and their excitement about it.
Love it. I will celebrate Dr. Galloway over here to my right, along with Danielle Rowe, who as you know, are teachers on special assignment, rocking our Everest Academy. And I presented to you on this platform that we were kind of crafting this year. And it's had a brilliant launch this winter, and it's really getting some good traction on it, and some good things are coming out of it. But walked by Meredith today, and she, at the high school, and she was like, editing video on a phone call, doing three things at once, but building this infrastructure that's really gonna do some cool stuff for us. So we've got great feedback so far on the first learning modules that have launched, and we got some new ones coming out next week that I think are pretty phenomenal. So it's good work. What about you, A-Dub?
Oh, it's my turn. So I share an office with Coach Wynn, who's also our assistant dean of students, and so I get to peep the stuff that's happening with the high school basketball team, which, as you know, is my life now. And he is planning for this summer's trip for the kids to stay at Pepperdine University in the dorms.
In the dorms.
To totally really get them into the college experience. He's taken them on tours of different colleges, but this time they get to stay there, and I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So excited.
Love it.
That's not very far from the beach either.
Right. And he's waiting to hear back
They
from
need a
USC,
chaperone.
so they might stay at USC. He already tapped me.
Oh,
Because you like basketball now.
you can
so
borrow
that
my
makes
surfboard.
My life is basketball now,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
good.
Amber.
talent show. It's in
Oh,
a week.
yeah.
And we have a great group of staff members who are leading it and doing a lot of work to make it happen, and then a ton of students who have been working really hard to, first audition and now rehearse. So it's always exciting to see that come back.
Love it.
Awesome.
So I am going to celebrate the 49ers, because I have to. And then I'm also going to celebrate, my daughter told me today that it was her class's turn to go to the library, and she's like, I learned about the Kansas City Chiefs, Mom. And she got very serious, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And she's like, they won more than the 49ers. I don't know if her stats are actually correct, but it was so awesome to see that she's, the kind of things that they're constantly, there was a book about Kansas City that was read to them today at the library, so that was really nice. And she came up with some really fun stats to share and things to share with us about a team that we would never know anything about.
Yes,
So,
yes.
it was exciting.
So you clearly don't have any Swifties in your house.
Yeah. We embrace
No.
inclusivity. We, our differences make us alike. It's okay.
You're a
It's,
Swiftie, you gotta kind of put yourself
a
down
bit-
in the
a-
Niner world,
yeah,
have to come up. Except my
love the
son
Chiefs,
thinks
love
he's
them
a
all.
Dallas Cowboys man.
oh, wow.
Oh, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
He's like, I love the Cowboys, and I'm like, but they're not playing, sweetie. And he's like, but I love the Cowboys, so it's a great thing in the house.
I love it. I love it.
Amy.
I will celebrate the swim team at the high school. I love me some basketball, Amy Wells, but my children are swim team kids. And so Larkin is going to be this first inaugural class of, using the pool over at Thomas High School, and they're so excited. I am very excited. I have, swim meets that are now 2 hours long instead of all day long.
Oh, yeah, that's short. Yeah, yeah, like
Absolutely.
nothing.
And 6 a.m. practices. Who wouldn't want that in their life?
That's right.
But, just supporting your kids in being healthy and doing what they love. I am just so proud of our school for expanding and adapting and meeting the needs of what our students and our community really need and want.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. That's such a great celebration. Yeah, we're starting a swim team. So
And high school
excited.
meets are gonna blow your mind because they're so fast. Like comparison, there's 20 events and it's over. It's boom.
I can't even imagine. They were
Just
like,
you
bring,
wait. It's
bring
gonna
your
be
lawn
awesome.
chair. I was like, well, I didn't sit down. It's 2 hours long.
It's only
So
2 hours.
It's gonna be awesome. It's just day
good.
swim. Can't tell I'm a swim parent. Any board comments for items not on the agenda? Seeing none, John, do we have any public comments yet?
I will check public comments. Can we check the high school while we're here?
Of course, perfect timing.
Kahikis, do you have any public comments over at the high school?
Well, it's funny. Someone just, I sit here in this room so I can see the cameras. Somebody's out front. Oh, they must have a key, so they're just walking in. I doubt it. Should I check with them?
I think if they have a key, they probably don't know how to get
They're
on.
probably
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, they're good. I'm
Okay.
thinking who has the key, but
got
yeah, it's probably our
excited
custodian
for
team. Okay,
Somebody's,
I'm like, who's going in on Ashley right now?
yes.
somebody's commenting from the high school.
I think we're good.
Probably custodial.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Keegan, thank you for checking with us. You're good. Thank you very much. And there are no public comments as of this moment on the emails.
Perfect. Do we have a wave report?
We do. She emailed it in. I'm going to try and do my best. Hello, Westlake families. As I write to you, I feel overwhelmed with gratitude and appreciation for being part of this wonderful school community. Jumping in with the WAVE Foundation has been an amazing experience in joining a well-run organization that acts as a bridge in connecting the families and children that share educational space. The children our own go to school. Yep. I watch kinders grow into 5th graders and feel absolutely honored to have the opportunity to collaborate in carrying on our community events that have been long established and also have the opportunity to create new ones. On February 3rd, we were able to come together to create a new joyful celebration with our inaugural Westlake Family Dance. We envisioned an event where our families had an opportunity to gather in food, games, music, and dancing. It was everything we imagined. Children happily joined in the fun with a phenomenal professional DJ who happens to be one of our own kinder parents. And parents had the chance to sit with others, connecting in conversations that we rarely get the chance to have in our day-to-day drop-off and pickups. The collaboration of families in the planning and execution made the event a proud, memorable one, and we look forward to continuing to grow the dance in the years to come. Thank you so much for the opportunity to create moments of joyful gathering and connection, and we look forward to the many more that are to come.
Thank you.
That was your celebration too, right there.
Yeah.
I just love it when all everyone's together and happy, especially if there's food. So Charter Impact met this month. We looked over the charter and sort of what were the charter promises that we've made in regards to data to see if that was sort of like the next pathway that we might do work on. And what sort of became clear to me and what we're going to do at our next meeting is take a little time and look at the graduate profile along with like the jagged student profile to understand sort of the context in which we use data and what we're sort of striving for, just to help give the committee just a better sense of who we are and how we got to where we are in regards to data and how we make an impact on our community. So we don't know exactly where we're headed yet with the work, but we're still information gathering and making sure everyone's on the same page.
Super cool.
Josh, development.
Yeah, so development met, and one of the 3 goals that we have are creating repeatable systems. Some of our fundraising around Big Day of Giving, Giving Tuesday, that type of thing, and we really kind of achieved that part of it as far as creating a repeatable system. So we're gonna let that kind of operate, feed the machine as needed, and are gonna switch our focus a little bit on how we can start just kind of brainstorming a capital campaign, and how do we basically look to build off our success and make it bigger. So that's something that we're gonna dive more into at the meeting
Monday, yeah.
this coming Monday. At the meeting this coming Monday. I knew there was a holiday in there, it threw me. So, so we're gonna discuss at the meeting on Monday, and just kind of bring everybody together, see kind of what they wanna do inside the committee, and little preview, when I asked kind of, how do you see yourself fitting into this? And I really want to just say, now take that and run with it, make it yours, and let's blow this thing out. So there's a lot of good things on the horizon.
Finance met. Steve, fill me if I missed something. I feel like we spent the majority of time sort of going over what the status was of like the state budget and how the different funding pools may be affected by whatever estimates you look at in terms of the deficit the state's facing in the coming year. So that really was the majority of our conversation. We did spend a brief amount of time continuing our certificated comp review. It's always at the forefront of the committee's mind. There's just a lot of data still outstanding on that, and so we spent a lot, just our focus on sort of where we are at, and in future meetings will be more about, I think, where we're headed. And then governance did not meet tonight because we did not have a quorum, so I will kick it over to you, Dr. Ike.
Well, hello everyone. I have 172 slides. No, just kidding. I don't think this presentation is super long, but I do have good slides on the LCAP and the later discussion item regarding facilities, which I think that'll be a good one. But let's dive in and do what we do, hit some celebrations, some strategic actions, and some updates. Look, it is field lesson o'clock right now at Westlake Charter School. People are on campus, off campus, heading out to colleges, up to the fish hatchery. We had Explore It, Science come on yesterday, the day before, on campus. It's one of my favorite parts of being explorers, having our explorers go out and do their thing. So here's some 3rd grade field lesson up at the Nimbus Fish Hatchery. Here's some amazing pictures from the K-5 family dance. Several staff families recognized up there. It was beautiful, as noted in the wave report, and well attended, and I think replicable, and will happen again. I think this will become a fan favorite. I even heard some chatter about how can we get the middle schoolers and the high schoolers to run the dance so they're involved in it. Maybe next time. So I love it. If you didn't catch this, you missed out on the good stuff. We recently had the Great Kindness Challenge, K-12, and it manifested in different ways on each of the 2 campuses, but both of them really felt Westlakey, right? I mean, here at the K-8, kids sitting in these, this little ball pit, and they pull out a ball and it would say something like, kind. And over here, I think these guys probably would do this if you asked them to. I bet they would do that. But like it manifests in a different way. You walk down the hall and like all these little notes being left to one another in the hall, which is such a fantastic like manifestation of like, hey, why not be kind? Here is absolutely one of the greatest morning lineup treats we have had all year at morning lineup on the K5 side of the house is Narkeisha Woodard out there dancing. You can see everybody dancing along with her. There was a flash mob, sixth grade? It was just 6th grade or all middle school. 6th grade, I think, came out and did a flash mob out there. It was great. So, great kind of challenge, tons of fun. Super big shout out, by the way, to the counseling team, to everybody who puts that on. I believe it is Counselor Appreciation Week, and so it is worth noting. We are huge fans of our amazing counselors. There's a couple of them here. Let me see if the high school ones are there. No, but big shout out to the whole counseling team. They just do so many great things on campus. Is that like not the perfect picture? Like, I will say nothing. You know exactly what's happening. Like, how exciting is that moment right there? Spelling Bee rocks it every year, and I believe it was, who was it, like 12 rounds? It got like, it went back, at the end, it just went round and round and round and round before we got a winner. So it was a really intense Spelling Bee this year. I would have been out in the first round. They'd be like, I don't know. Prospective parent tours were on campus in person during class. Now, I know, for those who've been here for a long time, you're like, yeah, that's how we've kind of done it. But then we went to COVID and we did digital. Then we brought people back on campus, but we didn't bring you into the classroom with students and staff in the classroom. We brought you into empty classrooms. And this year we're like, let's go. And there's just something magical about walking in Amy Rice's classroom when her and her kids are jamming, and the parents were just like, I want my kid here. You know how it is. Like, everybody wants, and look these high school student ambassadors speaking to why they chose. It's like, it is really good stuff. So yeah, the prospective parent tours were fantastic. Obviously, we were in that open lottery moment during this last month. It just closed. I'll give you an update tonight on lottery. And look, a little peek behind the curtain. So we have these flex blocks at the high school, and these flex blocks of time are flexible, and they're to be used for whatever you need, right? So, So hey, I would need some math help, so I'd go to my math teacher during flex block and get help with math, but you would probably be in an honors class and use this flexible time for an extension or enrichment opportunity, and here it is, and these kids are like, digging in deep on honors seminars. And remember, these are UC approved honors courses, so they get not only an A to G approved course, but they get a grade point average multiplier for passing the honors class. Really cool stuff, man. Really cool stuff. All right, let's dive in. You spoke to this, Hope, and this is the data piece that I was going to bring to governance tonight and say, well, I'll bring it here because it's still kind of a discussion item, and I'd love any feedback if you want to hear more about it. But, one of my goals is to analyze academic and social emotional data, regular board reports regarding student outcomes that align with the graduate profile. So I've got kind of this data protocol that Jen Kayau, the director of curriculum instruction, and I are kind of trying to get calendared out a very readable, understandable, comprehensive manner in which we all look at data. Which data do we look at? Which data does admin look at? How regularly, how often, and what manner do we look at it? And what do teachers look at, right? And so I give you this construct here because I go, hey, there's tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. This is the 40,000 foot. This is like, everybody gets this. That's the data we're going to look at. Then there's like the 15,000 foot. We get a little closer. Admin's looking at some data. That's probably some data I'm not going to share publicly on YouTube. Then there's teacher data, like, that's on the ground. I don't even look at that data. That's your data. And so I want us to kind of conceptualize that. And I bring up our guiding, our MTSS pyramid where we talk about academic, social, emotional, behavioral, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. As a reminder, tier 1 is universal. What does everyone get? First best instruction, full access to curriculum. Like, tier 1 is what we all get. Tier 2 is targeted. Some people get some tier 2. They still have access to tier 1. But some of them get tier 2. And then a handful of people get some really intensive tier 3. And we look at data the same way. What is the data where everybody gets? We're going to talk about it on YouTube. Now, the admin team has access to that data, but they have access to some data they're not going to share on YouTube. Behavioral data that's like, we're not going to put that on YouTube. It's private. I really respect this tier 3, like, hey, what Amy Rice does in her classroom, that's her data. She has to have the opportunity to jam without it being on YouTube or even being in the admin room. So let's just kind of walk through. Here's what I'm calling 40,000 foot, tier 1, everybody has access type of data. We're talking about overall summative data, the reviews, kind of the organization, how we're doing academically. Who has access to this? The board, the community, the school. It's on YouTube. We are out there talking about it, right? What will we review? And this is kind of open for discussion. So if you find a nugget during the presentation, you're like, but could we put this in that tank? I'd love that type of dialogue, because Jen and I are going to take it to governance today. I thought, well, I'll bring it here.
And Impact's seen it.
And Impact has already seen this, that's right. So yeah, we review CAST data here. We talk about the dashboard data here. We talk about NWA here. I always cover achievement gap in my presentations. We talk about demographic data. We're going to talk about, potentially during the lottery. We're always talking about demographic data. High school indicators for graduation performance and graduation rate. We haven't had a graduation rate yet, though. But starting next year, we're going to start to say, what percentage of our students are 4-year graduates? What percent of our students are 1-year graduates? And I'm expecting that's going to be very regular data reporting for this, tier 1. Now, Jen and I are saying, okay, well, how can we get to a regular quarterly reporting cycle? Well, you have that late fall cycle after NWEA and CASP has come in from the previous year, and you've got the dashboard bubbling. You have kind of that late fall. And you have what's coming in next month is like the second round of NWEA. And you kind of have like this end of year wrap up, because especially once we start getting graduates, that's a great time to go, hey, it's our June meeting, or maybe it's our July meeting, but we're at that end of year, and then you come back around to that fall. So we're kind of conceptualizing this to be very regular. We want to build a calendar and put it on our board website. And then what is the response to data? Like, what should we do with this? And I think the board should be empowered to say, hey, we should ask questions and direct the executive director to investigate areas of concern, right? So I show that, show the achievement gap data in particular areas, and we should be able to scratch on that. But hey, bring us back more about this. We're curious about this, and that's how you play in there. Our administrative team regularly looks at data that's different than the data that you look at, and really when you look at that, you're talking, obviously we go over all the tier 1, but then we dig in a little deeper because we're looking at ongoing grade distribution. The high school team and the elementary or the K-8 team sit down separately, your site level leaders, and they're looking at, especially at the high school, very regular grade reports. How many kids are not passing classes? How do we get MTSS to help and help those kids? And that's some of the responses, right? We start looking at what kids need to get some extra support to pass those classes. And this is actually, some of the data is happening weekly, some of it's monthly, some of it's just the end of term. Really, especially if you look at the high school, but like as we get toward that end of term, right? Because we know once that grade hits that transcript, that's a forever grade, right? So it's a tier 2 or 15,000 foot, not all of this, we're looking at behavior data. And we're cross-tabbing like behavior data, attendance data, and somebody's approaching their end of year or end of semester grade, right? So admin teams looking at that, they're turning it over to Student Support Services, MTSS, and our response to that work is really more systematic. Like, hey, what systems can we utilize here? Can we get this kid a case manager, right? Rather than like, how do we individually interact with the student? Because that really is tier 3, right? Teachers are constantly in the process of reviewing their own data. They're looking at all the tier 1 as well, but they're really looking at formative data. I mean, formative data is continuously being collected. Every interaction with a student is a piece of formative data. You meet them at the door in the morning, hey, good morning, and they go, oh, that's a piece of formative data right there, right? And teachers are constantly doing that. They're weekly meeting in PLC teams. They have planning meetings. When they're unit planning, lesson planning, co-planning at all, this formative data is constantly feeding. Oh yeah, I know we want to move forward in this unit, but I got a lot of kids in my class that are still struggling with this concept. I might have to slow down or catch up. But they also are able to collaborate, through 6-week check-ins, with administration and, when we do the end of term kind of wrap-ups. But what the teachers are able to do is a little different than admin is, they're responding to the data in the classroom, but they're also using these systematic referral systems hey, does this student need an MTSS referral? Has this student been served by MTSS for multiple data cycles? And we're starting to go, hey, maybe we're referring, student support services to assess this child for an IEP. So I just wanted to show like the 3 columns of data and why there's going to be data that I'm going to look at that you're not going to see, and the teachers are going to look at that I'm not going to see, and that's okay. But if as a board you say to yourself, hey, you know what? There's a piece of data that we're not getting, and Jen and I will come back with some quarterly calendaring, and we're still working out like how to do the social emotional reporting side in a very public way. Obviously, we have suspension rate on the dashboard, but our suspension rate is so low, it doesn't give you a lot of data, right? So as we go, as we continue to strive to have clear data conversations, especially those data experts in the room, those of you who live this, please, if there's something that's not happening on the data side, this is, one of my goals this year is to button this up tight so that as we come into next year, we have a very clean script going forward. Let me know if there's anything missing. Any thoughts, questions, or concerns on data reporting, or data conversations from these 3 tiered looks as it bubbles up today? Anything on your mind? Cool. Yeah, I'll bring it back with some calendars. Updates. What do we got? Oh yeah, lottery applications. Today's February 8th. What kind is it? It's February 8th. Lottery closed on January 31st. Super exciting time in our office, right? Melissa Grunholtz, who's the lottery czar who runs the entire lottery. She at midnight on the 31st has to wake up and go and turn it off. Otherwise, somebody will apply at 12:01 in the wrong day. So all of the applications are in. I love to go through the numbers, right? Going back to 2017, when we moved into this campus, we had a full 982 students who applied in the lottery. Almost 1,000 students, which was huge. So in 2017, we're like, oh my gosh, almost 1,000. And then we have over 1,000, and then we have over 1,200, and then we have 1,400. And we're going to go down a little this year from last year, but we go down by about 50, 40 something. But we're still higher than all previous years other than this year right here. So we had 1,598 students apply for what genuinely are 112 openings. You're right. Now we're going to look at the data. It's fascinating. First of all, I know it's one of our goals to always be more reflective of the demographics of the district, and one of the ways that we do that is we look at the number of free and reduced lunch applications that we collect through the lottery process, and our numbers are up again because this board made a very courageous effort to change the lottery practices to allow students, siblings to fall before free and reduced lunch, which then in this year, you're going to see ends up doubling the amount of free and reduced lunch applications that you get. So let's take a look at that. So Kinder Title I applicants are 66, but this is our 5th year of prioritizing siblings and has increased the Title I pool. There are 24 siblings who got pulled who are Title I. Then you go to the Title I preference and pull 22. Which makes over 40 siblings, over 40 students who qualify for Title I, which is over 40% for us. It's a big deal because in our old preferences, we would have pulled siblings first. Free and reduced lunch first, and some of those siblings might have got pulled in there. But this practice now 5 years in a row has absolutely shown that this board made the right call if you're trying to increase the number of students in poverty that you serve. So really good work. This next piece is fascinating to me. We have increased our applications 5th through 8th and decreased our applications K through 4. We're going and looking at like numbers and bubbles and like, is this a low birth year and what's going on? But it's fascinating. So like your kinder, for the first time in a long time, is below 300. And then all these other ones dropped. And then over here, the highest they've ever been. So clearly, opening a high school, I would assume, has really impacted your middle school. People are like, hey, can I get into 6th grade? Can I get in there? Is that the ramp into your high school? And we saw that with NP3 for years. People would leave here in 6th grade and go to NP3. Well, why are you going there? Well, I get in 6th grade, then I get into their high school because we don't have a high school. But now we have a high school, and 6th grade's got 216 applications, the most applications we've ever had in school history. Interesting. You look down here and you go, well, what's going on down here, right? We're still a highly sought after program, let's be honest. We've got, 300 applications, it's fine. We don't need 500 applications. But what is happening? Well, Heredia Arriaga opened up 2 years ago, and it's viable. It's down the street here. So that's a brand new dual immersion elementary school. You're like, okay, check. Star Academy is rocking. NP3 just expanded at the primary level to their maximum capacity now, four classrooms wide. So they expanded by 22. And then you go to Paso Verde, which is still pretty new, and you go, oh, 1, 2, 3. We have multiple new places to send your kindergartner, along with TK. So universal TK in the district. I mean, if you get your kid into this school and they're there for TK, and then a year later you're like, oh, I'm gonna go apply to, I don't know, it's working out. I already got my parking spot. I know how it works. So look, we're doing fine. We got plenty of kindergarten applicants, but I'm doing a little analysis. I was like, let's see if that trends, the next 3 years, right? Because something happens once, it's a thing. Something happens twice, right? It's still just a thing. Something happens 3 times, it's a pattern. So we'll keep an eye on the pattern.
Except for third grade. Which is interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah. And yeah, look at that bubble. Yeah, maybe I should have said instead of K. Well, no, yeah, right, because 4 goes down too.
Yeah, no, it's just,
Yeah,
sorry,
the bubble
it was
there.
just a little enigma that jumped
Yeah.
out at me.
Any other questions, thoughts, or concerns regarding lottery? I love it. I mean, look, you got, what did I say? What was the number? You got 1,598 people willing to trust us with the most important thing in their whole life. Oh, dude, I'll take that. It is such a good feeling to be, have the community want to be here. Well, speaking of, I think the high school making middle school applications rise, let's talk high school. We're going to talk facility update later tonight, but the property acquisition, if you recognize that piece of dirt right there, that's because you're about to own it. Congratulations to you. This board of directors, I mean, honestly, you should be congratulated on the work you've done in this. It's been a long road. I mean, since 2019, where we're like, you think we can buy that dirt? We are on track to close escrow. So we filed our 30-day notification. We are on track to close escrow. We were for sure it was going to close March 1st, and the lawyer's like, yeah, so that means March 7th, right? We're like, what do you mean? What? Like, it doesn't exactly close 30 days. Like, but the thing says 30 days. So we are certainly closed in March. I think it's in the first couple of days of March. We're really excited, this club center, the Backbone project, this club center is making great progress. And we were once again reminded by the person who's cutting that through that it would not have happened had Westlake not been purchasing this. So not that we're out there with shovels making it happen, but because we're doing what we're doing, this cut through is happening. And it's great to know that I don't know, that things are coming together on our behalf with that piece of land. And we will be owners of it, and Steve and I will be out there mowing any weeds in the spring. Yeah, with goats, right, with goats. We'll be goat shepherds. It's going to be awesome. Yes. We are obviously continuing our facility use agreement in collaboration with the Natomas Unified School District, and we'll be updating later this evening how that's going there. Any questions on the actual property acquisition, the closing? All right. I mean, when we meet again, you will be land barons. Maybe we'll own a piece of land. It's just so cool. I mean, come on, it's cool. We're going to own a piece of land. I don't own anything. I have a car. Yeah. All right. It's super cool. Okay, that is the end of my report, and I'll see you back. It's time for me to be back.
Before we take on consent, we just do another check for public comment.
I would love to. It's here somewhere.
How many screens?
Yeah, I know. It's a lot. There we go. Public comment. I thought your report was brilliant, Dr. Wright. That's my wife. Nope, no public comments.
So that brings us to our consent agenda for this evening. We have 5 items on. If there aren't any questions on the agenda, is there a motion to approve?
I'll approve.
Thank you, Nerali. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Amber.
Pope,
Yes?
Josh,
Yes.
Meredith,
Yes.
Amber,
Yes.
Nerali,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
and Ann.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Oh, Dr. Ike, it's back to
There,
you.
look at that. Actually, I am merely the clicker on this one. Steve's gonna rock us some LCAP, and I will
Right,
be.
it's the LCAP,
That's
so
right.
who's not excited
It's
about
an
it?
acronym, so it's Steve.
That's right. Steve gets on.
Funny how that happens, right?
LCAP away, my friend.
Yeah, so welcome to the LCAP mid-year update. You may be thinking to yourself, I don't remember doing an LCAP mid-year update before, because we had not. It's a new thing this year. The State Board of Education always loves to tweak the LCAP template and make things happen. So one of the things they tweaked this year was, you should do a mid-year update. My mic's on. So anyhow, so just kind of jumping into it. The LCAP is the Local Control Accountability Plan. As you know, we are funded through the LCFF. The LCFF is the partner to the LCAP. So the state gives us funds, and then the LCAP says, well, how are you going to spend it? What are you going to do with it? So it's just the partner of it. And it's been around for nearly 10 years now. So remember last year we said, hey, happy 10-year anniversary to the LCAP. So here we are again. It continues to struggle on. And it mirrors our strategic plan, which is great. Thank you much. So again, the CDE approved a template again at their fall meeting. Again, the annual updates have become frequent for the State Board to do that. And new this year with the LCAP mid-year update is two particular pieces. So the first piece is they're asking for outcome data to be reported to the board, and also expenditure and implementation to be reported to the board. As we kind of go ahead, we can take a look at the next piece. Well, how would we get mid-year outcome data, right? And if we think about it, we have our goals outlined in our LCAP, which again mirror the strategic plan. And then we have each metric under each goal that says, hey, we will, based on quantitative and qualitative information, perform or meet schools in our area, essentially is what it says. And so I was looking at this going, okay, Corvin, how are you going to fill this out and make this happen, right, for the board? And as we started looking through it, I said, well, interestingly enough, we go ahead, this is something we actually do quite frequently and report out, at least in our administrative meetings and also here at the board. If you go to the board website, you have the link called Strategic Plan, and if you click on that, you'll actually be taken to a tool where at least weekly, the team can capture information that has happened over the prior week or weeks, and how they align to the strategic plan, and of course that would then align to the LCAP. So we can search by goal, by objective within each goal, and then we have what the activity was. So if we click ahead, you can actually see there's a tremendous amount of information that we capture quite frequently per each goal for each metric. So looking at goal 1, that's something goal we kind of frequently toss around when we demonstrate what is possible, right? When school and community collaborate. And if you look at the metric, we've onboarded new staff members. We have new staff positions. We grew 11th grade. We have web and link crew going on. We've got our student support services using shared spaces this year. We've got common prep times. We do quite a bit under that one specific goal. If you take a look at goal 2, 3, 4, there's a ton of qualitative information in there. But for the quants in the room, we also have information, right, on NWEA and CASP and all these particular data sets that are also not only used but reported on. So it actually came together quite well because of the work that we do quite frequently kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah, on that, just to chime in, I'm not sure if we said this in the room or not, but this year's administrative team has used, because we're on 2 campuses, we're like, what can we do once a week that kind of just brings the whole band together? So once a week on Friday, we do a strat plan review where every administrator, we set a 5-minute timer and everybody just logs in and fills out one entry on the strat plan, and then we report out. Everybody read out what you wrote. And this is where all this qualitative data comes from, is because everybody goes, oh yeah, we launched web, or we did this, or we did that. So it's interesting, as we have this whole year been kind of tracking our progress, and as you went to LCAP, you're like, oh, there's all the data right there. Yeah.
Just kind of popping back real quick. I think most of this actually came through in the first 2 months of the school, right? So the majority was like, oh yeah, it captured really easy partnerships with Jive and everything. It was just so much that happens. So.
And you all have access to that spreadsheet, as we saw on the previous slide.
Yeah. So that's outcome data, right? So the next one is expenditure and implementation data. You're like, well, where would you get expenditure data from, right? If you're on finance committee, you may know this answer, right?
We do.
You do, right? So again, using the same format and same template, right? Each goal and each metric, you can actually point to some of our interim reports, right? Interim reports are done at periodic times throughout the year. So you can say, hey, since our strategic plan and our LCAP are so mirrored and aligned, right? That really aligns well to our budget expenditures. So you can come back to kind of the grid formation itself and begin to populate, okay, what has been spent, we believe, up to this point in the year on each one of these particular activities. And again, so it was almost a daunting task, like how is this going to come together? But again, because of the daily work that is done from the admin team and from the folks who kind of help with the books and things like that, it actually came out pretty well. So, and that is it for the mid-year update. So, mid-cap, LCAP.
Any questions about LCAP?
I just had a curiosity. So I know you do the big LCAP report every year.
Yes.
That you present out to us. Do you know how to create that report twice a year? Or is it a modified version of?
No, it's just bigger this year. They've added more to it. There's, they just continue to build it out. So, and actually this most recent round from the state board, they have begun to realize how a burdensome tool it is, right? Just like, it's becoming thick everywhere. And so, but they keep adjusting it. So
Yeah, I can
keep
just
doing
only
it.
imagine how much work goes into it the one time around, so I was
Yeah.
kind of.
Oh yeah, it'll be back in June. Wait for it. Yeah. So,
And then at the same time, it's like a specifically agendized item tonight, 'cause we weren't really sure like what the requirement was about how this information came. So that way, if anyone ever asks if we did it, it's gonna be very
there.
easy to prove.
That's
That's
true.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We definitely dotted i's and crossed t's, so thank you, Steve, for
You're
making
welcome.
that
Yeah, for
presentation.
sure. Yeah.
That's very good.
We'll check for public comments after, let's do it after your
Okay,
presentation.
lovely. Well, we agendized this discussion item tonight just to make sure, again, we are about to close on that piece of property. I want to update you on the FUA process. We went to NUST's board meeting last night, learned all about their potential bonding process. And so tonight's going to be a little bit of a presentation of like where I think we are in case anybody has missed it. I think most of you are very up to date on where we are on the FUA and the facility itself. But I'm going to briefly go over that for all of the YouTube viewers who saw this on the agenda and like, I want to know what's going on. Then I'm going to do a kind of learning evening where we talk about some things that we learned last night. So let me dive in and get rolling and see if we can't get, Amber to a basketball game before too long. Okay, high school facility update, super exciting. These first slides are going to look just like what you looked at last month, but they are really for the YouTube viewers. So if it's you at home, you can like push pause and grab the slide. Our board has a goal to support the executive director in the successful expansion of our K-12 school, including making appropriate investments in the short-term and long-term facilities for the 9-12 program. Super important to talk about that language, short-term, long-term, because that's how we've constructed the facility use agreement conversation. So short-term, as we know, we're going to continue to serve our students at 4400 East Commerce. We are sized at East Commerce for about 375 students. When we originally did the facility use agreement, we said we only want a 3-year agreement, not a 5-year agreement, because at the end of 3 years, we're going to be too big, and we have to get back into some form of like dialogue to say, what do we do now? Which is where we are now, because all of our classrooms are full, and the seniors are not seniors yet. Our juniors will be seniors next year. So next, with seniors, we'll have 500 students, 9 through 12, and where are they all going to go? So we have kind of done the math and said, look, if we have 5 portables back here in the back of the campus that can be temporarily added, we could serve all 500 students, and no teachers will have to leave their classroom and like travel from. Everyone will have their own classroom. Check. So we're in regular conversation with the Natomas Unified School District. The portables have been approved by Buzz Oates, who is the owner of that building, and by Sacramento Emergency Services, meaning that a fire truck can come back here, do a hammerhead turnaround, and come back out, which means it meets the requirements. Natomas Unified and Westlake Charter are discussing the portables outside of our facility use agreement because we recognize that we have a longer conversation to have about the facility use agreement, because we want to have a long-term solution there. So we're still massaging that and talking about that, but we have a time-sensitive issue with these portables. If you don't order these portables kind of right now, it takes about 6 months to get them in. we have heard it's possible they even get dropped early, which is funny. Like, what if they get dropped over spring break but don't get plugged in until July? We're like, okay, well, we won't touch them. We'll leave them wrapped up in plastic. But, it's a long process to get those portables out there and get all that work done. So we are doing this conversation outside of the facility use agreement and making sure that we get that done. The current estimated cost for 5 portables to be installed and leased for 3 years is $1.9 million. Some of you were thinking, I wish I was in the portable business. Yes, it would be a good business, I suppose. However, going forward after that, I believe they have $40,000 per year per portable. So a lot of that money is about at the install, not the annual leasing. So that's just a zoomed in version for you on YouTube, so you can kind of get a look at what we're talking about. These are 5 portables. You notice they're 960 square feet, which is the standard size for a classroom in the state of California, other than kindergarten, which is a little larger because they have the bathroom in their room. You'll notice that this white space says that this is about 10,500 square feet back here, and we know that this yard right here, our Oasis, is just over 10,000 square feet as well. So if you take down the Oasis fence, and you put up this red fence all the way around, and maybe you do some of this painting out over here, and maybe take some benches and some tables, and you bring them out over here. Now you got this very nice expanded outdoor area. There has been some conversation about, like, well, could we put a bathroom out there? Well, you can't tap into sewage out there. There's been conversations around like a trailer. We're working on the portables now. We'll just see what else starts to functionally work in there. A lot of people are asking about parking and drop off, and again, I'm like, well, those are great suggestions. I'm kind of in charge of portables. I'll let the principal figure it out, drop off, pick up, and I know her PBIS team is rocking that conversation right now. So really wanted everybody to know in tonight's discussion item, this is the short-term solution part of the conversation. We haven't inked it yet, but we are in strong collaboration with the district, and it looks like it's going forward. Any questions on the short term? Yeah, please.
Has the discussion made its way to the finances for the portables?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a 50-50 share. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're looking at right now. We haven't seen it in writing, but it looks like it's a 50-50 split. We've actually had some dialogue internally whether or not it is better to make 3 annual payments and impact the budget in that way, or because we're buying a $6.2 million piece of dirt this year, do you just pay your 3-year share up front so that it all goes out in 1 year? And those are discussions that we're having right now. Yeah. Any other questions? That's a good question. Cool. Yeah, so let's talk long term, right? So you're sitting right up there on the top of the map, right? That's where you're sitting today. We're at the K-8. All the way down that road down here, that's where our 4400 East Commerce is. That's where our current high school is. But right there, that little spot right there, is a piece of dirt that is right here, just walking distance from the K-8. Right, that piece of dirt right there is 8 acres for $6.2 million in less than 30 days. It will be ours because escrow is closing. And we, of course, have this conceptual map that we drew with some architects 4 years ago. Just in case 5 years from now we have a building and it doesn't look like that, it's just a conceptual map. It's beautiful there. One thing we've committed to is we will not have rounded walls. Everything walls, straight walls are much more affordable, just so we're all clear, and easier to repair and all the things. But it looks beautiful. But conceptually, what it does tell us is you can put a 500-seat high school on 6 acres with some athletics fields, a gymnasium, at least 30 classrooms, administrative building, a cafeteria, and an outdoor quad area and some outdoor learning spaces. So we know we can fit. This is our long-term desire. Well, let's kind of talk about what that looks like. We're trying to include our long-term solution in our facility use agreement. That facility use agreement must be buttoned up, signed, and done and approved by this board and the Natomas Unified Board before the end of June, which sounds like a long time away unless you're a teacher and the world slides to summer in about 30 seconds after winter break. So it's coming quick. We're in our February meeting. There's a March, April, and a May. And then we got to have this thing buttoned up. So we have a lot of work to do. We've been working on it for quite some time. But here are the big discussion items regarding facility use agreement long term. Is the designation of our new property to be used for a future permanent campus. We need in writing that, yes, we all acknowledge that's the piece of dirt, that's where we're going to be, that's the future home of Westlake Charter School. We'd love some language describing the construction of a permanent campus, right? In the facility use agreement. There will be a permanent campus there. We will collaborate around the construction. We being Westlake Charter School and Natomas Unified, we together, we're gonna be doing this project on this place. That's kind of the language we've been working on, and hey, it's a long process and we're working on it. We also have included in the long-term piece there, while we are years away from building, right? Even if I won the lottery tomorrow, folks, it takes a long time to build this high school. You gotta get through DSA approval. I mean, there's so much. So we are years away. But we have a last league basketball game happening right now. We know that our kids are not waiting years before they do high school. So one of the things is, like, we don't have any athletics fields at the high school. And so one of the things we've been able to do is prioritize in the facility use agreement this little clause that says we'll get priority when we request field usage. Well, the FUA is not even signed yet, but they've already begun to honor that, and we have a ability to have a swim team at Natomas High School. And we also realized, because they just installed new fields at Natomas High School, they're going to allow us to play soccer there. So now we have a brand new soccer field to play on. And I think eventually, since we're so close to H. Allen Height, they will be using those fields in the years. Because it is, again, I'll say this for the YouTubers, it'll be years. If everything goes perfectly, it'll be years before we build our high school. So we need athletics fields and a swimming pool and access to all these things. So, the big news of the week really is that myself, the executive director of Westlake Charter School, and the superintendent of Natomas Unified School District, Dr. Robin Castillo, are scheduled to meet in the next couple of weeks to nail down this language. She and I had a phone conversation yesterday or the day before, and it was great. I said, hey, let's get in the same room. We all recognize June is coming. Let's try and hammer out what comes next. And so I really hope that we can come back here in subsequent months and report out progress on the long-term piece. I think we've made excellent progress on the short-term piece. So let's just talk about, okay, we all want this facility. How have facilities been constructed in the past? How does this come to fruition? And we're going to kind of start talking about how that comes to fruition. Because again, there are no guarantees about the future, but we can look at the past and go, well, how did we get here? The campus that you're sitting on right now was bond funded. Measure J passed in 2014, and it helped to fund Westlake Charter K-8, right? So we had this FUA that said, hey, if a bond passes, we'll build something. Then a bond passed, and then we built something, and we're here. Now, it wasn't just a local bond. There was a state bond. There was Westlake Charter contributions. And we're going to talk later tonight about other types of funding streams like developer fees and things like that. It's a moving target, and every project is totally different. But when we did our facility use agreement, when we were buttoning up in 2019, the one we have now that expires in 2024, this short-term FUA that we had, why didn't we put in that FUA, oh, we should build a future permanent? Well, it was 2019 when we were building it, or when we were writing it, and Measure L had just passed in 2018. And Measure L, as we've said, like, you don't go pass a bond until you know what you're going to build. Measure L just passed in 2018. We didn't exist in 2018 as a high school. So it wasn't like we were going to get an FUA that says, oh, well, let's build a high school, because all that 2018 bond money, that was already accounted for, right? $172 million, it was accounted for. So in 2019, there was no consideration of a bond to be happening within the duration of our FUA. So we put some clauses in there like, hey, we'll be treated like every other charter, and maybe someday something will happen. But we didn't put any construction conversation back then because there was just really no conversation of a bond. Now, to be clear, especially with the YouTube audience, there is no bond currently on the ballot. I'm talking about what could happen, what has happened in the past, but there is currently, as we stand today, no bond. In fact, and I'll tell you what, NUSD had a great meeting last night, super applauded their meeting. It was an informative meeting about what's possible with no decisions, no guarantees, and we'll talk about that tonight. They informed, and NUSD had a board meeting last night where they informed their trustees about bonding capacities and bonding process, which the last time there was a bond, several of those board members weren't on the diocese. So it was a informational meeting for them last night to be like, okay, how's this all work? If we wanted to, could we, should we, could we not? And they learned last night and asked good questions. So we're going to bridge tonight into what we learned about bonding last night. I've been here through a few ponds, but you know, every time you sit and learn, you're like, oh, that's a good nugget right there. So I'm going to share with you tonight what we learned last night. But before we move into that bonding conversation, are there any questions about the facility use agreement, where we're at in that, or about the facility short-term or long-term at all? Ms. Patel?
One question I had about back in 2014, I guess how farther back, what kind of FUA in terms of like years did we have to kind of put in the language to say we want to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's see, in 2013, no, there was a 12-13 school year, there was an FUA that said if a bond passes within the next 5 years, and one did. Star Academy, similar situation. I think they were actually as late as like, I want to say May of 2014, they got their FUA, and then in November of 2014, the bond passed. So they were kind of late in that same cycle. NP3 had a FUA, one of their FUAs passed before the Measure L bond, and then they built their elementary portion of their campus. But one of their FUAs actually passed like almost simultaneously with the bond. So there's no perfect formula, but if you look at the last decade, the cycle's kind of been like, hey, let's make sure this is something we want to do. Do we want to do this? Okay, now there's a possible bond. Okay, now after the bond, you would do something, right? So that's kind of the cadence that we were, considering. We've been proposing in this cycle too. Yeah. Any other questions about the facility itself or where we're at in the process? Yeah. All right, let's do a little learning journey. I mean, maybe you're a bond expert. And you're like, John, teach me something. I just put this portion of the slide up there because it's so complicated. I'm like, oh my gosh. But by the end of this, you might understand it. Steve and I are just smiling because we love it. Let's talk about the primary sources of funding for facilities construction in California. So I'm going to speak specifically California because I don't live in Michigan, so I don't know what they do. But like here, we've got general obligation bonds or GO bonds. Like a general obligation or a local bond says, hey, if we pass this, or to pass this, you need 55% of the voters to say yes. So you put a general obligation bond, let's say for $1 million right there on the ballot. If 55% of the people are in for it, then that bond can be issued. General obligation bond. State school facilities bond. So that is a statewide bond. This is going to be our local. This is going to be our statewide. Really, to do any type of facilities construction, you need both. If you do one and not the other, you might sit on it. So if you ran a local bond and it passed, but the state bond failed, it is possible that the people who got the local bond sit on it, don't issue it, and wait until the following election cycle and see if a state bond comes through, or vice versa, or that way. Because you kind of need both, right? State bond theoretically comes in for 50%. So say you're going to build $1 million project, you think the state bond's going to do 50%, and your local bond's going to do 50%. And it doesn't always work out exactly 50%. So sometimes your local bond overfunds, and sometimes you have some other funding like building permits and developer fees. So if you have new construction in an area like Natomas, the developers have to kick in some money, and you see that often in imagine a big empty field, and somebody comes in and goes, I bought this whole field, and I'm going to build 1,000 homes here. And I know to sell 1,000 homes for the highest dollar, the people who buy the homes, the first thing they're going to say is, where's the school? And so I, as a developer, I'm going to kick in some money to the district to make sure a school is built right there in my development, which values my development, right? So there are developer fees, and we know that Natomas is the only, I believe, district in Sacramento County that's currently growing. Everyone else is going through, the districts are shrinking. People are aging out, less children in the neighborhood, people are moving, but Natomas is still growing. It's a good thing for Natomas, and also a challenge because you build houses, then you got to build schools, and you got to time it out just right to make sure you don't build a bunch of houses with nobody has anywhere to go to school, or build a bunch of schools that are under enrolled, right? So you're really trying to do this balance. So,
Counselor Wilcox, is that how they're doing the new North Lake Elementary? Do you know? Is it that we see building?
Oh yeah, isn't it beautiful? Yeah,
It looks
yeah,
really
yeah.
nice, but that's largely the developers wanting it.
Yeah,
for sale.
100%. There's got to be developer fees involved with that. And you know what? If you would make a note about the North Lake property, I would love to. I'll call over to Twin Rivers and see if I can get a little scratch on that. I would love to see how that's going down.
And I just use it as an example, right? That's a
Yes,
brand new
I
community.
mean they built
want-
an island out there.
Yeah.
Everyone lives on that side of the freeway and that freeway. They're up there in this North Lake Island, and I'm sure the homeowners are like, "We're getting to school, right? Because we don't want our kids to ride their bikes across the freeway, right?" Yeah, yeah. So these are funding sources, and let's say, okay, well, we don't have any control over the state bond, and let's assume you do or don't have developer fees. What do you have control over? Well, whether or not you have local bonding capacity. Can our district, if we're a district, can a district run a GO or general obligation bond? Well, first they have to figure out what their bonding capacity is. There's limits. A district can't just say, we want $300 million. It's all formulaic. It's like you have a credit card limit, right? How much are you worth? Probably more than me, right? So good credit over there. The bonding capacity is kind of like a credit card limit. And what they do is they formulaically say, look, the bonding capacity is based on the percentage of assessed home values. So if all of the homes that we own in Natomas are worth $1 million put together, then how much can we borrow on that $1 million for a bond? You could borrow $60 for every 100,000 of assessed property value, right? So if there's $1 million of property value, that's you can have a bond for $60 per 100,000. That'd be a pretty small bond. So Natomas Unified or districts like Natomas Unified hire agents to come in and go, okay, let's look at the assessed values, let's look at the bond market, let's see what bonding capacity is within a district. Now, I'm telling you what, I was kind of blown away. I've been part of Natomas for 25 years. I'm proud to be part of Natomas. I think the Natomas Unified School District does a phenomenal job in lots of different things, but they have been such phenomenal stewards of taxpayers' dollars. Natomas has passed Measure D, Measure M, Measure J, Measure L, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of bonds. So this district or a district like it could have borrowed and borrowed and borrowed and borrowed and maybe not have much bonding capacity left, but they've been so smart over the years. Their bonding capacity is 66% less than the maximum allowed. How do they? We've got Measure L and Measure J, but they've been smart because over the years what they've done is they've used bonds at lower interest rates to pay off previous bonds with higher interest rates, which is interesting because right now they demonstrated the bond rate today is lower than it was in 2018 when they got Measure L. So if they fly a bond today and refinance Measure L or Measure J or any of the other bonds left over, they can save the taxpayer today over $6 million just by refinancing and still having the same end dates. Like, I saw that, I was like, hey, good on you, Natomas Unified trustees. Like, I looked up at the trustees, I know a bunch of those trustees, right? I live here, and I thought, hey, good job on being really good stewards of the financials in Natomas in this particular respect. Because, as they demonstrated, if this is the max of what you could borrow, your bonding capacity, and they're all the way down here, that's because they've been doing a good job of paying off and refinancing and doing great work.
Right, because the colors, just to explain the graph for people who might not know, right, are the various bond measures. Mm-hmm. And so you can see, for instance, in 2020, was when they paid off, I'm gonna call it the blue bond.
Yeah.
Just for ease, right? And you can see how they've been able to address the debt even in times of challenges in a very, I don't want to say profitable, but in a very beneficial way
to
the residents of Natomas Unified.
Yeah, they talked about equitable tax structures, and it was really an interesting conversation as they really took into consideration how these bonds impact homeowners in Natomas, right? I mean, if you own a $1 million home, you're going to pay $60 potentially per 100,000 on a bond. If we went to full bonding capacity, that's a significant ask of your community, and they've been really good stewards of our money in Natomas. So let's talk about that. Those are the types of funding structures that exist. That's how a bond operates. I'm going to kind of walk you through how you would get a bond all the way through the finish line. But there's an important piece here, and it's this. A facilities master plan is the initial phase, is like a pre-bond phase. You don't want to go out and borrow $100 million until you know what you want to spend it on, right? If you gave me $1,000, I'd buy an electric skateboard. My wife would be like, I thought we were painting the kids' bedrooms. I'd be like, oh, we didn't make a list. I got a skateboard, right? So like, Natomas Unified is in a process right now. They're working through the facilities master plan process, and they're making sure they include all the voices of the community. They've held these community nights. They've asked people, hey, if we were going to go out for a bond, not sure that we are, don't know if we're going to, but if we did, what would you like to see built? What is an issue that we'd like to see funded? Does your school need renovations? Do you need more classrooms? Do you need better field space? And you have to consider as well, like expansion. Like this is what's being called the Upper West Side. It is on the west side of Natomas. See, that's the river right there. And this is the two bridges that goes over into West Sac. Like starting all the way down there, is that the Silver Skillet right there? Like starting all the way down there, all the way up through here, this is all development. This future development. If that were to start booming, you'd have thousands of homes come in, which come in with hundreds of children, and they would need schools to go to. And so you'd have to really start to consider that as you're doing this facility master planning process. So the
Are those, so the other, I can't read that small. Are the colors densities?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
I just want to make sure I understand it.
Yeah, there's high density, very high density, there's low, very
Okay.
low. Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yeah. And we'll make sure this link gets in the packet if you'd like. You can click on there and kind of give it a look. So like the outcome of a facility master plan process is this big book. It's a document. It is a plan, and it'll identify future facilities needs across the entire district. We would, of course, want to be part of that plan, right? At Westlake Charter High School, we're part of the facilities master plan list. We, as a K-8, were in the 2014 Facilities Master Plan. You put that plan together before a bond passes so you know what to build when the money comes in. So what you're going to find here is new construction. Hey, you want to build a new high school in the Upper West Side? You want to build a new Westlake Charter High School? Remodeling, site acquisition. You got some land purchasing. You got your gymnasium at your 35-year-old school is too small, too big, too whatever. There's some remodeling, some acquisition for things to grow. This growth forecast is a big one for Natomas. Again, we are the only district that's really looking at growth. I mean, this is the Upper West Side, but that's not including the Arco Arena area, right? Which is completely going to be, new growth right in the center of Natomas, which is wild. So this plan is likely to include, needs such as the Upper West Side, the Arco Arena K-8, renovation and rehabilitation across the entire district. Oh, we need a shade structure. Oh, we want a better playground, things like that. Lots of site acquisition. And then we, of course, would like it to include Westlake Charter High School, right? So imagine, you understand, okay, we got the bonding capacity. We learned last night what type of capacity we have. If we were going to float a bond, how would that happen? We being this grand Natomas community, it would have to be voter supported. Okay, check. We got this facility master planning going on. Okay, check. So if you had the bonding capacity and a list of facilities projects, how do you decide what to build? You're like, well, you build everything, right? Well, yeah, right. I got a list at home. It's like, we want a new kitchen, we want a backyard, all we get in is an electric skateboard, which is great for me. Yeah, we all have these long lists. So here's what we're looking at. Based on the Natomas Unified School District presentation, the bonding capacity could be as much as $270 million on a local bond. Doesn't mean they'll go for 270. They can go for 150 if they want. But a realistic amount is $270 million. Sounds like a ton of money. Until you recognize that the facilities master plan that was produced in 2017 equaled over $400 million worth of projects, and that was in 2017 dollars, right? I'm not like, if you done a tank of gas lately, right? Like, so things are more expensive today than were then. So I mean, the 2017 didn't include a brand new high school in the Upper West Side or 3K8 for an Arco Arena K8 or the finishing of Heredia Arriaga project or a Westlake Charter High School. Like, this potential FMP, and we don't have numbers, so I won't pretend to speculate, but I know it's gonna be more than 400 million, I would assume. So what if it's 750 million, $750 million, and your bonding capacity is 270 million? Well, you got some hard work to do. Now remember that 270 million would be your local bond, and that is coupled with what? State bond, right? So if it was a 50-50, okay, you got 270, you got another 270 from the state, you got developers, if those developers come in, look, people smarter than me figure out all the numbers, but like it's a lot of dollars, but there's a lot of need in a growing community. So the trustees of the Natomas Unified School District really have to prioritize items from the facility master plan, to prioritize them onto a bond project list, right? Only items published on the bond project list can be bond funded. I'm gonna slow down, can I say that again? I got all the things in the facilities master plan, everything we could want to build, new playground, new fencing, new everything. And at some point, you're gonna go try and float a bond. You can't put everything on the project list. Because the bond voter's gonna go, you put a $750 million project list on this. I don't know, that doesn't equate, right? So they're gonna have to pick what makes the project list. Now, you can't fund something that's not on the project list, but just because it's on the project list doesn't mean you have to fully fund it either. You could put Westlake Charter High School on the project list, and then on the other side, you could pass the bond and only build a part of Westlake Charter High School, or just do the environmental impact on Westlake Charter School, as long as some of the bond funds go to that. But just because it's on the list doesn't mean it's going to be fully funded. That's why in our facilities use agreement negotiation conversation, we just want some clarity. Like, what might we expect on the other side of a bond, if we could expect anything at all? It will start with, are we on the facilities master plan, and are we on the project list if a bond were to come fruition? But there is no bond right now, right? If local and state bonds pass by the voters, the trustees decide which items are partially or fully funded. And I say that again because it's, board policy 7000A, which is actually the policy, says the Natomas Unified School District trustees are the people who decide what gets built, when it gets built, and where it gets built. That's their decision, and it'll be hard for them to decide, right? Those are the two on the screen. You can see the two previous facility master plans. There might be projects in those plans that still are not done, right? So they're hard decisions to make. But if you wanted to go from today to a bond making it to the ballot, what would that look like? The Natomas Unified School District on the left, Westlake Charter on the right, because both of us have work to do in this season, so I thought I'd just line us both up. February of 2024, I know what's going to happen because it's happening right now. Everything else is speculative. They had their first bond presentation at Natomas Unified School District last night. It was absolutely phenomenal. Trustees asked great questions. Bill Young and his team did an excellent job. It was very informative. It's on video. If you want to go watch it, it will be way more articulate than what I've showed you tonight. On the right, we are doing our facilities update right now. Now, everything after here is pretty speculative, right? Potential upcoming items. The Natomas Unified School District in March has indicated that they will potentially go out and do a poll of the community. Hey, community, we kind of asked you what you wanted in FMP. We've kind of produced this thing. It's called a Facilities Master Plan. We might be interested in doing a bond in 24. We might be interested, and they said this last night, so to be clear, they're like, hey, we might do a bond in 24. It might be in 26. It might not be till 28. It might not be. So they're not locked in, but if they're running toward 24, this poll right here will poll the community and say, are you interested? Are you interested in going out for a bond? Yeah.
So it's often based on per $100,000 of property value, right? The rate. Did they? And maybe I'm jumping the gun, but is part of this polling trying to suss out like how much people might be willing to pay per the $100,000, or is it just like zero? Is it any interest?
Yeah, I wonder. I don't know. And they did not
right.
indicate what the poll would. Did I miss that?
I don't think they specifically mentioned that, but I know one of the trustees just wanted to see the methodology behind the polling before it went out to the community. It was very interested to see it. I know in previous polls, because this cadence is very similar, right? You do the
Right.
FMP, you do the polling, you do the eval, you write the docs, everything else is kind of, so in the previous polling, and you can pull it from board meetings, right? They ask about, what if it includes this project or that project or these projects? And they'd really begin to like dissect it out a little bit to really try and get to like good data.
No, I was just curious, because in my other life, right, I write impartial analyses for school bond measures every, spring and fall. And so I was just curious, because you come to sort of predict based off what that per $100,000 number is. So I was just curious.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, so here we are in March. We believe a poll will be going out to our community, measuring the interest. We also believe at the March meeting, the Natomas Unified School District will be receiving and potentially approving the facilities master plan. At the next board meeting, I think they indicated there would be at least a preview of it, and at the subsequent meeting would be the pass or fail of the FMP. During this exact same month, we predict that we will close escrow on our piece of land, and no coincidence, this all happened. We were really excited to have this land closed before the approval of that FMP, so that when our piece of land was included in that FMP, it was our piece of land, not still in escrow. So we'll be closing escrow in early March. We expect this FMP to go to the board in late March, and we hope to have for this board potentially some draft FUA language. When I spoke with Angela Herrera end of last week, some draft language was coming together that I'd like to get you guys get some eyes on, and that's coming back hopefully in the March meeting. Potentially in April, Natomas Unified School District will have a presentation regarding those poll results, right? And it was mentioned last night, hey, if those poll results come back in April and nobody wants a bond, hey, that answers that question, because this board is not going to move without the support of the voters. Why would they, right? And again, they said, hey, maybe that poll comes back favorable or not favorable, and we decide 24 is not our year, and we think we're going to go out for bond in 26 or 28, and they said it multiple times. All right, so we just have to recognize that this cadence has its own tempo, its own pace, and they're really committed to listening to the voters and hearing their interests. In May, if they decided they were going to go for a bond, and that's if, based on a lot of ifs, they'd have draft bond measure language, and they would have that draft project list. So back here in March, we got the facilities master plan, we got all the things, and then here in May, we've whittled it down to here's the project list. Now over here, what are we going to be doing? Oh, we're going to be ensuring and hoping that we're on the project list, right? And we'll be talking about that and previewing that along the way. And in June, this is when they would potentially consider a bond approval. So the Natomas Unified School District, to get a bond on the November ballot in 24, would have to approve it in June, because it has to be down to Sac County by July 15th to make it to the November ballot. It has an accompanying project list, and it has to have a couple of signatures, and it happens to be, strangely enough, the deadline for our FUA as well. So we've got to button up our FUA by the end of June. If they're going to do a bond, have to do that same. So there's just a lot of moving parts around Natomas's facility conversation, Westlake's facilities, hopes and dreams, and we're trying to put all those pieces potentially together in a language that works for everyone involved. So that was our update. This is a little snapshot from the NUS Weekly Highlight. You can click right there and get to see their entire presentation. Again, I recommend it. I think it was a fascinating overview of how bonds operationalize really within the context of a district that you know and love. Like you'll look at the actual numbers and go, okay, wow, that's fascinating. Just see how that works. What questions, thoughts, or concerns might you have regarding this topic? Just nap time. Yeah, Amy.
It might be like not a question.
Yeah, that's good.
You could be like, stop talking.
No.
Looking back at the prior bonds, are there any predictable measure? I'm just wondering, during that time there was a moratorium on growth and on development in Natomas. Now we have all of this new development.
Yeah.
But we're talking about developers adding, putting in for schools. did they talk at all about like, hey, there's so much growth, people are probably going to want to vote for a bond?
Oh yeah. So what was the likelihood of the bond passing?
Yeah.
Boy, polling's such a fickle deal, and chime in. There's a couple schools of thought that are kicked around. One is like, hey, November 24 is a pretty big election. You got a federal, state, lots at play. You got the mayor, so everyone's gonna vote. Like if you want a time when everybody's gonna vote, this is your cycle. That sometimes is good for bonds, sometimes it's not. So right, and you got so bump out to 26, and you go, nobody comes out to vote in 26. Sometimes that's good for bonds, sometimes it's not. So I think the polling that they're about to do, obviously I know it's the normal cadence, it's what everyone does, is you get the FMP, then you do some polling before you go out to bond. But I think it's wise, because you just don't know. And then even though you do the polling between March and November, if the price of a gallon of gas goes up, down, or sideways, I mean, it just affects how you vote when you get to the booth. So I wish I had a better answer, but I don't think that I did not hear them say last night, oh, yeah, we got this locked up. And I didn't hear them say, so it seemed like it was plausible. What was the 2017 Measure L percentage? It's
68%.
68%. That's right.
It was 72. So
Yeah.
And don't forget, bonds used to require a supermajority, right? And there is school districts sometimes still elect to go for that because of how they can spend the money and oversight committees. And I
Yeah.
don't know all the
That's
pieces
good.
off the top of my head, but they do have two options, but you pretty rarely don't see them going for the 55%. Because when it was the supermajority, you would see them fail actually relatively regularly, right? You also have school districts that will elect to do them as like small mail ballots at off time of year, because I don't want to say only your really dedicated voters, that's not really fair, but typically people who are more engaged with the civic system are more likely to vote for that and maybe would know more information. Whereas I feel for them, they have 3 trustees up in November as well, don't they? Does that sound?
I think so,
Yeah.
Right? They did
Oh,
two
yeah, it's
last-
two.
It's two?
Yeah, because when I think it's two.
Right. I wasn't sure if it was 2 or 3, but either way, right, they're
There's a
also,
lot of
they're
moving
running
parts.
in tandem with these so I don't envy them, the choice, right? And then to ask people when, their pocketbooks maybe already hurt to pay more.
And there's also a great conversation came up last night, and Board President Heredia kind of acknowledged it. It was that, hey, if we are trying to raise funds to build out potentially the Upper West Side, we don't really know the timeline of the Upper West Side. Why are we racing to this bond now? And so, there's just there's a lot at play in November of 24. And so, while there's no guarantees if they want to go forward with a bond, they have a clear pathway, and we still have a lot of work to do with them to determine how we, get included in that work.
Well, then it's just on the side of the finance committee, maybe Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but the one common thing I think that's come through with Steve's presentation is just how uncertain the budgeting is and everything else. And so they're also trying to launch this into an inherently uncertain time where we're all here, there's just a lot of, 2024 is like the unknown year, yet it's just really interesting timing.
It's exciting. It's exciting. Other questions? Did you learn anything about bonding?
Yeah.
God, I'm telling you, I'm fascinated. Love it. All right. I believe that's a wrap on that.
I think so. Before we move on to we have second interim coming up, that's the future agenda item there, but before we do reflection, can you do one more check for public comment?
Sure.
And then we'll do reflection before closed session.
Don't see any. Nope, no public comments.
Reflection, what worked well or what would be better if? Amber, I'm looking at you, would you mind starting?
Sure. I would be happy if I was also able to watch my son's basketball game while we have this meeting, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't miss this, so you can hear all the cheering, so it's
Right.
lovely to.
Before closed session, you guys should take a little break and run over
I
there, I
hear they're
think.
doing very well.
Okay, good.
I'm just gonna reflect, I really liked the bond discussion that was shared from the NUSD
Yeah.
meeting. That was very informative to, you know, how we talked about the different levels early on in your reflection. I mean, we're at the Westlake level, there's a level above
Yeah.
us, you know, and that's so important to keep in mind as we think about what we would vote on or other decision-making here at our school as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I agree. I learned so much during that
Me too.
presentation. So
Me
thank
too.
you so much for attending that meeting and then for bringing us that information. And I just want to thank the people in the room who are so much smarter than me. As I'm like, the yellow part of me, I'm like, what? Like looking back, and you're like, it was 66%. And the one before that was, I'm like, that's exactly what I wanted to know. So thank you so much, Mr. Corby.
Love it.
I agree, you did such a great job with the bonding. I learned so much. I also really liked your data protocol. That was really
cool.
helpful to see the different views. I think it breaks it down for folks who might not understand the
Yeah.
educational landscape as well. So thank you so much for those two.
Thank you. You want to play?
Sure. I think the bonding piece was great. I would give a shout out to Bill Young
Yeah.
and the team from Governmental Financial Services who presented with NUSD last night. They put a lot of the slide deck together. We used pieces of it, so thank you to them for helping us and educating us.
And I feel like they do like 90+% of the bonding for schools throughout the state. Like
The
they.
team that presented last night has, I think, been the same team the past 2 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
They
they're
walked in and it was like, hey, welcome back. Yeah,
Welcome.
They do
great.
it for counties and cities too, so.
They did a great
they're
job.
very knowledgeable.
I also like the bonding presentation, because, man, it's a bonding presentation. But no, I like the fact that you also made it a point to focus it on the YouTubes and include that in the discussion, because the timeline is gonna come up more and more and more
Yeah.
as to when are we going vertical, when are the kids walking in, and to kind of present it the way you did every now and then, which allows, you know, our parents and, you know, the community to understand the process as well. I thought that was just as important as explaining it to us.
Yeah. Cool.
I'll agree and echo. I think, you know, there's a lot of heady topics tonight, and I think, you know, when you see a presentation, you're like, oh, this makes sense to me. I always know, like, wow, a lot of work went into that.
Yeah.
Because this is a really complex topic. So whether it's the data protocol or the bonding or the LCAP, like mid-year review, I think, like, it's, I really appreciate how, like, transparent we try to be, you know, even just, like, hosting online and making sure that people have opportunities to ask questions. I think it's really important, and
Yeah, I like the we're online still. Yeah,
I was actually gonna reflect on the LCAP, just to be a little off topic, I guess.
it's good. Yeah,
But
good.
in a way that it, like, I know one of your ED goals, right, is to build the data protocols. But the reason the LCAP report can be done somewhat easily was because you've built the protocols already in order to measure success on the strategic plan. So if we hadn't put those pieces in place, we wouldn't be nearly as set up for success as we are. And so I wanted to sort of just reflect on the importance and how I appreciate having access to that data.
Yeah, every once in a while, you just go scroll through it every once in a while. You just see years of qualitative data, like comments about the it's fascinating. Well, I mean, so what worked well or what would have worked better if, right? So, you know, this was a lot of heady topics and a lot of like us talking to you. What would have worked better if, for me, is if I could have figured out a way to be like, you talk to me about what you think about bonds. It just, unfortunately, today was a lot of talking this direction, and I love it when I'm hearing your voices. So, you know, a reflection for myself, how to hear your voices more. AW plan at all?
You guys are always really smart.
Yeah,
I just
write
like
that down.
when smart people are the ones in control of all this stuff.
Yeah,
Because
it's
if it
all
were
the
up to
smart people.
me, it'd be really scary. I'm not that smart.
It'd be filled
I
lessons.
just like to prop you up.
There we go. There we
We
go.
all
Good at that
basketball all
part.
the time.
All basketball all the time. There we go.
should have a big basketball stadium built for our school.
That's right.
So with that, I will go ahead and adjourn us into closed session. under public employment, I do not anticipate a report out, and so we will just adjourn from there.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. Let's go and stop the YouTubes. Doop-a-doo. Bye, everybody. And end that.
Is it over or is it halftime?